against $85 billion in additional supplemental military aid to go to Ukraine. And so Donald Trump clearly is finding somebody in Marco Rubio, though, who he is placing a high level of trust in to fill this role. Of course, the two individuals, they had a difficult relationship in 2016, but for a great many of the more establishment figures in Washington, D.C., not only Republicans, but also Democrats, even like John Fetterman praising the selection today. Of course, Marco Rubio is a longtime chair or ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and Mark Warner, the Democrat from Virginia, has long touted the relationship that they have had on that committee here. So that selection is big, but it also falls in line with Michael Waltz, who is a Green Beret who served in Afghanistan and Africa, a veteran who is selected to be National Security Advisor, another type of a figure that one could expect to work well with Marco Rubio, his fellow Floridian. And then, of course, though, Kristi Noem, NBC News reporting now that Donald Trump is expected to tap her to lead the Department of Homeland Security. Of course, that is a big role that oversees everything from ICE and the Border Patrol to Secret Service. So that would be a big portfolio that would be falling under the South Dakota governor.
Yeah, Annie, what do you make of the Marco Rubio pick? And, Vaughn was just talking about, Rubio has deep knowledge and has had very clear policy positions, not only with, China, but Iran. And then, and then let's talk about Latin America. I mean, Cuba, Venezuela, Honduras, El Salvador. He was down meeting with Bukele. What does it tell you about this decision?
Well, I think that the choice of Rubio signifies, first of all, the influence that Susie Wiles is playing on the Trump administration already. He's very close with Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff. There were other Trump loyalists like Rick Grinnell who were in the running. This is an example where someone with deep foreign policy experience won over a Trump loyalist, maybe. Like Rubio will sail through the Senate. There's not going to be a problem with his confirmation. He has relationships with Democrats and Republicans from the Intel Committee. But it's also an example of how much the Republican Party has shifted and shape-shifted for Trump. I mean, when Rubio burst onto the national scene, he was seen as the future of the Republican Party. This Cuban-born son of immigrants as the guy who could go all the way to the Oval Office, this like very unique American dream story. And he has hardened on immigration. His work on the immigration reform bill of 2013 was seen as a political killer for him. He's distanced himself from that. He's obviously worked hard to repair his relationship with Trump, which people say has gotten stronger since the 2016 campaign. And it's just what we've seen from a lot of these people. You could say that he is like an Elise Stefanik. These are young Republican leaders who have long been seen as the future of their party, and their party completely changed, and they're still the future of the party. These are the shapeshifters who are changed policy positions, changed themselves to be able to still be in the top jobs in a Republican administration.
Yeah, no doubt. And he just to kind of reconfirm some of that, Rubio ran for president, as we all remember, and the battle between he and Trump at the time. But Rubio ran for president, and among other things, because he was born in Miami, not born in Cuba. Both his parents were born in Cuba, but that, right, it makes it, he's able to. Yeah, absolutely. And Jake, and we were just talking about that. I mean, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman posting that Rubio is a, quote, strong choice, and he looked forward to voting for his confirmation. This does look like, in this specific case, Rubio would have probably an easy confirmation process.
Incredibly easy. I don't know if it will be a voice vote, meaning everybody would consent to him ascending to Secretary of State, but it'll be pretty close. I mean, number one, senators generally have an easier time, within reason, getting through to the executive branch. But, a lot of Democrats, including, I would assume, someone like Mark Warner, who you mentioned, Jose, shares a very good relationship with Marco Rubio. They've served on the Intelligence Committee for a long time. Marco Rubio has been a serious figure on foreign policy, on international relations, even with Democrats, has worked with Democrats in the Intelligence Committee, as Mark Warner and Marco Rubio always say, is one place where partisanship doesn't really exist. Of course, it exists everywhere, but it is one place that Democrats and Republicans work together in dealing with this highly sensitive intelligence that they get at the committee. So yes, Marco Rubio will be confirmed easily. Listen, Jose, the reality is this: despite Trump talking about these recess appointments that he's been talking about somewhat quizzically, I don't really see right now anybody that has been mentioned for a confirmable position, meaning one that has to go through the Senate. I don't see any of them having problems. In a 53-seat Republican majority in the Senate, I don't see anybody, whether it's Rubio or Kristi Noem, having any sort of problems. So I don't know, I don't know why he's talking about recess appointments when he has a large Senate majority, a large Republican Senate majority.
Yeah, and just thinking back on your comment about how the Republican Party and much of its leaders have had to, shift over the years, and I'm just thinking, and of course this would not be under his responsibilities, but Marco Rubio at one time was a part of the Gang of Eight that in the Senate tried to have comprehensive immigration reform that passed in the Senate. Of course, it died in the House. But talk about shape shifting on that issue. This is a totally different Marco Rubio than he was when he was a member of the Gang of Eight.
Yeah, I mean, he's been different for a long time, and he distanced himself from his own legislation after it failed in the House. And kind of disowned it, and has, defended Trump's comments throughout the campaign, and just kind of fallen in line on immigration issues. But I think that as Secretary of State, foreign leaders are expecting 4 years of unexpected, they're bracing themselves for a Trump administration. I think that the challenge Rubio will have will be looking to assure foreign leaders that he is someone with foreign policy experience. He's not someone who doesn't have the resume to be appointed to this job, which sometimes can happen in a Trump administration, that people who in a normal administration would never even be on a short list for these jobs somehow get there. This is not the case. You can disagree with his views on China or Russia or anything, but he is qualified for the position. That might bring some solace to foreign leaders who are just terrified of what the next 4 years could bring.
And Vaughn, meanwhile, Elon Musk has been a regular presence around Mar-a-Lago since the election. What do we know about his role in the Trump transition?
Right. We've heard from multiple sources who have described Elon Musk's presence around not only Mar-a-Lago, but Palm Beach is almost constant. He has not only gone on the golf course with Donald Trump, but also on Saturday night, there was a dinner at Mar-a-Lago, and the way that those dinners have been described to me is that usually Donald Trump is blasting music out on the patio of the Mar-a-Lago club, and he is usually in control of the iPad that is playing the music. But Saturday night was a little bit different, and that was because of who he was sitting down with at the dinner table, and there was no music being played over dinner because he was sitting down with Elon Musk. He has become very much a key part of this transition, and where this kind of relationship goes from here is not exactly clear. But for now, 1 week after Donald Trump's ascension, in large part with the help of Elon Musk, not only with America PAC and some of the ground organization they were running, but also, of course, this platform of X, which was a key promoter of a positive Trump material online. Clearly, these two men have built a very rosy relationship, at least as of right now, and we will wait to see exactly what his role within this administration or even the transition here looks like going forward. But for now, he's very much a fixture here down in Palm Beach.
And Jake, meanwhile, I've been thinking about this because so far Trump has selected 2 House members, Republican House members, to be members of his administration. How could these absences affect Republicans in the House when we're still not able to call who is going to be in charge of the House of Representatives going forward?
Yeah, well, Trump needs to stop, to be honest with you, because he's going to nominate his House Republican majority into the minority very shortly. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has an extraordinarily thin majority, maybe one seat larger than he had all of this Congress. And Steve Scalise and Mike Johnson, both of whom I've spoken to this morning, have both said that Trump has reached his limit. He cannot put any more House Republicans into the administration after Michael Waltz and Elise Stefanik, who are National Security Advisor nominee and ambassador to the United Nations. I know there are a lot of people from a lot of different delegations who want this role, but it doesn't mesh with the fact that Trump has a very aggressive 100-day agenda that he'd like to put in place, as do House Republicans and Senate Republicans. And if you don't have a majority, you're not able to pass that agenda. You'll be in the minority. It's pretty simple math, Jose. Annie and I have been covering all Congress, this incredibly tight majority, and it will be equally tight. And remember, Mike Johnson is going to have basically no room for error. Special elections take time. I know the Trump administration, oftentimes, at least from 2017 to 2021, they were befuddled by Capitol Hill. They didn't understand it, nor did they care to understand it. But special elections take time. Each state has its own statute, its own law about when they have to schedule these special elections. So Scalise said to me this morning, they've reached their limit. They can't do any more nominations. We'll see if they heed that advice, the Trump administration.
And then, Annie and Jake, I mean, then there is the issue of what's going to happen if Rubio goes to the Department of State. That opens up then the Senate slot, which has to be filled by the governor of the state.
That's right. DeSantis will make an appointment there. But the House is the more interesting place. You know, I was thinking this morning, all of these Trump loyalists in the House who may have been positioning themselves for something if he won, they might have, for their own personal goals, it might have been easier for them if Democrats had won back the majority and Trump had won the White House. Then he could take as many as he wanted. It wouldn't matter. But this trifecta with a tiny majority is going to make life in the House, if you thought it was chaotic the past 2 years, I don't think we're going to see anything more easier for House Republican leadership going forward. Yeah.
Vaughn Hilliard, Jake Sherman, and Annie Carney, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Up next, breaking news: why the judge in Trump's hush money case has delayed his decision over whether he'll set aside Trump's conviction or let it stand. Plus, danger from the ground. Several U.S. airlines suspend flights in and out of Haiti's capital after at least 2 airplanes were hit by gunfire. And we're keeping our eyes on the White House, where any moment now the Israeli president will meet with President Biden. We're back in 90 seconds. You're watching Jose Díaz-Balart Reports on MSNBC.
People love to find me, but me, I love finding the perfect gift. Like for my friend Wenda, who loves coffee. Or my neighbor, who's become surprisingly flexible. Or my dog, Woof, who may look little, but he eats big.
Gifts delivered on time or your money back. Etsy has it.
With Udemy, there's a world of possibility at your fingertips. With one click, you're in the leading online marketplace for learning and skills. Want to become an AI expert? This is learning from real-world experts around the globe. Want to awaken your artistic side? This is learning your way. Want to switch professions? Help your team reskill? This is Udemy, the power of possibilities.
Each week on my podcast, I'm joined by uniquely qualified